Hello and welcome to this slightly different and special edition of Beyond the Boardroom, where we asked our community for their questions of us. And so today what we're going to do is answer those questions. We're really looking forward to it because it will be a different way of us doing the podcast, and we hope it'll be really helpful and valuable. And thank you to everyone in our community who engaged with us and asked us some questions. This one's Malcolm Louth's question.
Hi, Mal.
What role do leaders play in creating cut-through in a world that has so much turmoil and change right now?
Firstly, thank you, Malcolm, for asking us such a great question.
Really good question. So Thank you, Malcolm. It kind of helps you realise just how hard leadership is right now for those in organisations, not just in the UK, but globally, when there is such a lot going on. You know, as we speak, we've got Trump and Musk reconsidering how to structure America, the world, and talks ongoing with Ukraine and Russia. We got taxes on imports. There's a huge amount of change, and leadership is really critical. And I think we talk to more and more people who feel slightly anxious about the world that we're living in. Yeah. And so how can leaders do their best work? I think for me, it's probably a couple of bits. One, being human enough to really understand what the team are going through. How are they feeling? What's going on for them right now? How does things impact them? You know, we work with some organisations that have got teams from Russia, teams from the Ukraine. How are they making sure that they continue to have people on their team working in a united sense? There's also a piece around how leaders can create clarity. I think that's probably the most important thing they can do when you're thinking about the organisation, is saying, yes, we understand all of these different things are going on. We've got AI, but this is what this organisation is going to concentrate on, and give them some reassurance and some clarity that we are looking at these things. We understand these things are going on, and we understand these things might be impacting you, or you're at least aware of them. Our position on these things are X, but here, this is the work that we're here to do. This is the impact that we're here to make on individuals, the organisation, or the world, depending on their sense of purpose. Yeah. And here's how we can focus our time, our minds, our energy.
Yeah, I think that's so true. That piece around reconnecting the people in your organisation around your purpose, that real focus. And there might be areas of instability, but you've got a real opportunity to map out areas of real stability, haven't you? And say, okay, this is going to be stable. That's going to be unaffected by, you know, whatever might be happening. It's interesting. This question really took me back to COVID, when we first realised what an enormous impact it was going to have. And I sat with my team and we stripped out everything that we had to do and reorganised what we were going to focus on. And all of that focus was about how to create a safe place to work for our people, to deliver the services that we were offering. And over-communicate. If you think you communicate enough during times of turmoil and change, you need to amplify and do that much more. So that ability to be able to keep, even if you're reiterating the same message over and over again, keep that connection, be really visible as a leader, be available, make sure you have provided all the right avenues for people to be able to reach out to seek help. You know, if you do have colleagues in, you know, other countries, you know, really thinking about what's happening there, and making sure people have got access to that kind of help is really important. But yeah, that stability, if you can create a bit of stability, create it. Help people to have something to focus on.
I think the other thing is for the leader themselves. So I think you've almost got to try and create confidence in the decisions that you're making in the organisation, but you might not actually 100% believe in them all yourself, or you might not 100% have all of the answers. And so maybe making sure that you've got the right support network around you, that you are emotionally stable enough to be able to lead through this turmoil. Have you got the resilience? Have you got the ability to give them confidence? And you can have humility with that. And maybe at times say you don't have all of the answers, but not in a way that doesn't destabilize. They have to have confidence in you. They have to have confidence in the leadership. They have to have confidence in, the organisation might be their safe space. And so how do you help them with that? But how do you also help yourself?
That's really lovely. Well, Malcolm, we hope that was a helpful answer. But for anyone out there at any time, if you want to talk through how we might be able to help you, then please do give us a shout. You can contact us on hello@startinspiring.com. We'd love to hear from you.
What are the key steps, actionable things that can be done to ensure that not only do you set the right culture in a sustainable way as you grow the company, but also that you actually define what the culture is?
Thanks, Dale, for your great question. So interesting, isn't it? Because this is the type of thing we do a lot of.
It is.
And I love the piece around, well, how do you even define, what culture is, which you probably would say, that's how we do things around here.
When no one's looking.
But also defining the culture that you're trying to achieve without it just happening by osmosis and you ending up with a culture that's created just by the people in the organisation.
And there isn't anything more important other than knowing where you're trying to get your organisation than the culture that is going to get it there. And you have a culture whether it's intentional or not.
Absolutely.
We know culture is how do people behave in the workplace, what decisions do they make, and
how do they interact with each other. How do they make decisions, how do they interact with each other. It's just so fundamental, isn't it? Because if you don't have people acting and behaving in a way that is conducive to your culture, then ultimately you won't achieve your organisational aims. Well, you might do, but it will be kind of much grittier than it needs to be.
Well, and you won't have people all acting and behaving and making decisions in the same way, and that doesn't help you grow your organisation. So we do this work with clients a lot. And so designing your culture in an intentional way is how do we need to behave to be the best organisation we can be in the space that we operate. So what I mean by that is, intentionally choosing those things. The NHS has to be more risk adverse. That's an organisation that wants people who are caring, who are making sure they do things really properly by the book, that they're continuously looking for that kind of service led. Netflix are a much more risk and opportune type of environment, and that's the type of individuals and behaviours that they want and need to succeed. So really starting with who are we, what are we trying to do, what behaviours do we want to see in our organisation, what behaviours will help enable us to be successful, and we call those values. So what are our what are our organisational values actually? What do we believe in? Some of that will come from the existing team. So what are we really good at? What are the behaviours we see in our organisation, or the beliefs that we have in our organisation that we want to keep hold of and continue to nurture? They make us unique. And what needs to evolve, because what's got us here will not get us there. And that's kind of the first piece. So values first, which we would advise organisation to have no more than 5. Many have 3. They're really nice and easy to remember, and they're really nice and easy to instill. Anything more becomes a bit of a poster on the wall. And under those values, so here's what we hold true, here's what's unique about us, how those things show up in behaviour. And the work we do normally is about what would you see if people were living and breathing these values, and what wouldn't you want to see, the kind of the opposite of that, and kind of the what we are and what we're not. And we think if people can see it, people can be it. And so that's kind of the first step of going, okay, what needs to be true. I would heavily advise clients never to copy. This isn't about Netflix has a brilliant set of values and I just want to be Netflix. This really needs to be, who are you? What's your organisational DNA? and how's that going to be your uniqueness?
Yeah.
Um,
And using those values really as signposts at checking in points. They're just those, I don't know, artifacts almost, aren't they, that say these are our cultural intention is this, whichever, you know, however that's described, and actually using those values to hold each other to those values. And that means actually not just the leaders, although the leaders play a very important role in it, but actually for all of us to be saying that's not in line with our values.
Absolutely.
That decision that you just made or that behaviour you just displayed isn't, and it gives permission, doesn't it, to everyone in the organisation to be collectively responsible for the culture.
Yeah. And actually, if you don't do that, you get the culture you allow.
Yeah.
So it's so important. So what we're saying is really articulate that culture. What are the values, all of the behaviours that you want and need to see in your organisation? And then the second part of the question is, okay, so how do we sustain that? Well, we build those into every part of the employee journey, every part of customer interaction. So what that would look like in practice is we have a competency or values led interviewing process so that we can find people who will thrive in our organisational culture. We onboard them, we performance manage, we talent manage. Everything is in line with our values. And as you've said, that means we will really reward and celebrate people who are living and breathing them and delivering, because it's not just what you deliver, it's how you go about it. But also we will intervene when that's not how people are living, behaving and making decisions, because that is not in line with what we want and need going forward.
And this is the type of thing we can absolutely help people with, isn't it?
Every day.
We love doing this type of work. Particularly love that piece around actually understanding the existing team, what are their values. It's a really involved and engaging piece of work you can do, isn't it?
There's a number of kind of cross, because there's paradox as well in culture, how independent you want people to be, really going through some of those different choices and making sure that we plot the organisation where it needs to be. You can look at, do you want to be a Disney or do you want to be an NHS or do you want to be a Bank of England? What is the work that you're doing and what environment do you want to create? And if we can pin that, we can then help you get there.
Yeah, so nice. Hopefully that helps your question, Dale. Thank you so much for engaging with the Beyond the Boardroom pod. If you want to be intentional about your culture, then give us a shout on hello@startinspiring.com.
So my question would be, to those scaling their organisations without a chief people officer at the table, how have you structured your approach to people management and culture to set your team up for success? What does effective people leadership look like in your organisation?
Thanks, Louise. Great question. An area really close to our hearts and something we do with clients a lot in terms of, the real discovery and getting to know our clients and the journey that they're on. And I guess there's some really important points to cover, aren't there, around where's the organisation going?
Yeah.
Where is it now?
Yeah.
What's the time frame that it wants to get there in?
Yeah.
Really understanding a bit more behind how the organisation operates and the challenges it faces, because each industry has slightly unique and different challenges. And then starting to diagnose really what areas are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of prioritisation.
Absolutely.
One of the things we really notice and have also fallen foul of this when I've been a CPO myself is going, there is a lot we could do across the entire life cycle, and actually being really clear about these are the top three. These are the three that will make the most difference. Yeah. Something as well I think to think about is splitting those things out a little bit more into some real operational opportunities, but also some strategic ones.
Yeah.
Particularly that works well if you're going to work with an organisation like ours. We can help you with some of those things, and you might have an internal HR team who can be focusing on some of the others. So actually you could almost double your bang for your buck in that way.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you've said. Is what are we trying to achieve? We work with a lot of high growth scale ups They can't do everything. We know from due diligence at certain points of exit, there's some really important things that you want and need to be in place for your multiple. In addition, we also know which things give you the biggest value, and that's around the biggest value is you're spending a huge amount of money. Talent acquisition is often one of the biggest areas for our clients, spending a huge amount of time trying to find the best people for your organization. How do you get them in quick? How do you get them up to speed as fast as possible? And how do you make sure that they enjoy working with you so much that they stay? So really working on those. But you're right, if you haven't got, you know, these are the times when you do need policies, you do need handbooks, you do need some guardrails. But we also know that these scaling organizations don't want too much process. They don't want to be too bureaucratic, too corporate. So how do we give them the stuff that's really helpful, that stops them falling over unnecessarily and creates value? And that's where we work really closely with the exec team, don't we? And really closely with the leadership team, really to find out what you're missing in order to get to where you want to get to. And then the great thing about working with Start Inspiring is we are like a people team in your pocket. You know, HR is a specialism. You've got coaching, you've got leadership and development, you've got operational basics, you've got culture development, you've got talent management, succession planning. If you're scaling, you're going to probably need all of those things in the next 2 to 3 years. We can draft in. We've got all of the experience. We're working with a number of high growth scale up businesses all in one go. We can give you what you need at speed. We've learned all the lessons. We've done it well. We've also done it wrong. Like we've failed and not redone some of those things again in the last 4 years. And we can bring that to you, but we can also work with you. We are not consultants that just come in and tell you what you need to do. We are here with you as partners, rolling up our sleeves and, like you say, putting them in the order that makes sense and that your organisation has capacity for as well. So important. I think one of the things we talk about, don't we, is not always best practice. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because certainly in your early years of probably any profession, but certainly for me, we're always striving for best practice, where actually the shift is really what's best for you at this point of your organisational maturity. And that might need to evolve, but some of the the work or the products that we design will be things that can evolve with you. You can, enhance them as time goes on, rather than we're going to try and get you to, implement something that is, far beyond what you need right now. Absolutely. So best fit's what we talk about,
best
isn't
fit,
it?
not best practice.
And so we do that work. We really help bring what you need when you need it. And then you will need your own chief people officer at some point, right? That is what we do. We create an environment where we help you get so far. And then actually we tell you when you don't need us anymore. And actually you need your own dedicated in-house chief people officer, which ordinarily we would say is kind of the circa 300 head count, depending on the speed at which you're growing or the complexity of your organisation.
All depends what's going on for you.
And so the second part of your question, Louise, was about what good people leadership looks like as an organisation is scaling. For us, the most important things for leadership when that organisation starts to really expand beyond those really personable relationships is getting real clarity between the leadership team, making sure that everybody understands what are the priorities of the organisation, because sometimes that means that your part of the business might actually be holding back to enable another part of the business to really, really do what it needs, and for the organisation to understand what's being ruthlessly focused on. I think the second part is probably really communicating and over communicating and making sure people feel connected to the purpose, the mission, your values and your culture, and that as the business expands, they still feel like they belong. And the third bit is probably really creating clarity at an individual level. So with all of those things in mind, how can I, as an individual, make the best contribution to the business, and making sure that you're really clear about objectives, deliverables, and giving timely and helpful feedback to people?
Well, that was a great question. Again, thank you so much, Louise. Always good to hear from our community, and really grateful for the questions this time. We'd love to continue to engage with your questions, the things that are really important for you, and us unlock our knowledge to be able to share with you. So please do get in touch if you think we can help, but also get in touch if you've got another question. Look forward to seeing you again on the next Beyond the Boardroom. In the meantime, do get in touch on hello@startinspiring.com.